It's time again for the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast with Dr. John Dentico. The mission of our podcast is to provide 21st century leadership training for a talent-driven world. We help organizations implement strategies and practices designed to attract, hire, engage, and retain top talent while mitigating the effects of burnout. Our guests are experts in various fields of organizational dynamics, including, but not limited to, leadership, management, communication, and coaching. They bring a world of knowledge and solutions to our viewers and listeners. I am sincerely grateful for their participation and ideas. So let's dive in. And if you enjoy our podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. We genuinely appreciate your support. Hello again and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. John Dentico. With me today is Jordan Burton. Jordan is an executive assessor, an interviewing trainer with over 17 years of experience. He specializes in training top venture capital and private equity investors and high-growth companies on how to hire the best talent. Jordan was a partner at the renowned leadership advisory firm G.H. Smart, a consultant at Bain & Company, and holds an MBA from Harvard Business School. At his training firm, Talgo, he manages relationships with industry giants like Sequoia Capital, T.H. Lee, and Planeteer Technologies. I'm truly pleased to have him here with me today. Hello, Jordan. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, honored to have you here with me. As I said to you, just as we were getting ready to start the broadcast, you and I are orbiting around the same planets. I'd like to begin with a question. Jordan, I spend a great deal of my time in speeches and on my podcast working with organizations, people to help them attract, hire, engage, and retain top talent while avoiding or mitigating the effects of burnout. As someone who assesses CEO as top talent, can you provide an overview of some of the tools and strategies you use to hire exceptional talent?
Yeah, the way we think of hiring exceptional talent is there's 5 steps to the process, 5 things you have to do. You got to get clear on what you're hiring for. Seems pretty straightforward, but a lot of people miss it right from the get-go. Let's know what success looks like in the role. You got to source talent. There's great ways to do it, and there's not so great ways to do that in terms of just filling the top of the funnel. Then, of course, you've got to interview, assess, reference. You've got to make a decision. And I really do view the interviewing and the decision-making as 2 distinct steps. So you can get all the great interview data in the world and still make a bad decision, right? But you have a process with your team of communicating information, making a decision. And then you've got to close the candidate and onboard them effectively. So I would say that really there's kind of tools for each one of those steps. And I'd be happy to share some of those thoughts on what companies get wrong on each one of those steps and how we would propose a rethink of each of those steps.
Great. Go right ahead. Take it and run with it.
Yeah. Interestingly, so on the role definition thing, I think the biggest mistake there is just not doing it or copying and pasting something that you found on LinkedIn for some similar kind of role, or maybe from a prior role and tweaking the wording on a job description. This really should be something where the people who are stakeholders in this hire need to have a conversation around what needs to get done in this role. If that's a CEO role, of course, that's going to be board, investors. There's a lot of stakeholders there who need to weigh in on that. But any role, there's people who depend on this person to get certain things done. So let's get clear on that. And let's get rid of the kind of boilerplate team player, good communicator, smart, proactive, these predictable things that we've heard a million times. What is it really? What are those things that stand out about our company, our culture, about this role that make it uniquely challenging and exciting and fulfilling? Let's get clear on the language of what really does a great fit look like. Putting some discipline into creating, it doesn't have to be a 5-page document, a simple 1-pager that says, here's what they got to get done, and here are those competencies that matter most.
Okay. I spend time in my research. I've found 3 factors that if you, as I like to say, if you were to survey the skilled talent pool across the horizon of organizations, be they profit or not for profit, there are three things that seem to come up all the time.
Mhm.
Number one is people want to work for an organization whose values align with their own.
Indeed.
Second, people want to be involved in the decision-making processes of the organization. People want to matter. They want their work to matter. They search for a level of control and autonomy over their own lives, or as I like to say, people want to be masters of their own fate.
For sure.
And the third one is they want training and learning that's relevant and will enhance their professional and may spill over to their personal lives as well. So,
Absolutely.
so those are the three big things that I see that are, as you say many times, below the layer.
Uh-huh.
It's below the boilerplate. And I advise organizations, you got to have those things up front. It's up front and personal as far as they're concerned, especially when you consider this post-COVID world we live in now, and people are not just looking for a paycheck per se.
Yeah.
Okay. And especially when you talk about top talent, like in the area that you deal in. I'd love to get your reflection on that.
Sure. I mean, I agree with all three completely. I would shine a super bright spotlight on number two around connecting this role to the mission of the company. I want to feel like I have an impact. It's incredible when you, especially if you subsplit the labor pool into really high performing talent, the people who go above and beyond, the people who leave all sorts of delighted bosses and colleagues and peers and team members in their wake. Those individuals with remarkable frequency cite impact, cite feeling like I'm doing something important for the world, for the community, for the organization, for my colleagues and teammates. It's incredibly important. And we neglect that. When we communicate with them, we talk about what we want them to get done. Fine to have those things. As we said, I think internally you need to know what they need to get done. But when you're communicating with candidates, certainly have a way to say, here's what we are trying to do as an organization. And here's the role that you play in that. So critical. Couldn't agree more with that.
I'm glad to hear it. You validated a lot of the things that I've been doing over the course of the last several years. And I try to tell people, if you're not communicating with them on these three things, and I absolutely agree with you. Number two is huge.
Mhm.
People just don't want to just come to work and make busy work, as I like to say. They want to do something that matters. In fact, that
Sure.
leads me to my next question. Okay. And my next observation, I'm going to ask you for your reflection on this. Jordan, in recent weeks, I have returned to an area that I must admit I had shied away from. The conversation and importance of an organization's mission statement. Okay. I am sure you have seen when mission statements become nothing more than words hung on a wall. Oh, there it is. That's our mission statement. Do you live it? Do you breathe it? Do you do it every day? We walk by it every day. You get that kind. And I got tired of it. I
Yeah.
get tired of it because you just feel like you're in a death spiral every you start this conversation on mission statement.
Yeah.
Let me continue. I have returned to the subject with a renewed fervor because I get it now. How important a mission statement is in helping top talent understand what the company does and what it stands for. There has to be a very strong connection, in my opinion, between the values of an organization and the values of the person that organization is trying to hire. I'd love to get your reflection on that, please.
I'll start on the mission statement part. Having seen so many of these over the years, we often ask companies about what is your mission when we're talking about hiring top talent. The prevalence of empty platitudes, just very generic language about something around serving customers, employees, community, whatever. When it is clear what the mission truly is, when it is articulated in a way that says, here's who we are, and it implies a trade-off. I think almost back to my Bain days of doing strategy. Strategy is about trade-offs. If our mission is X, what isn't our mission? If our values are X, what isn't? It needs to be something that actually means something. And like you said, I love it when leadership, when CEOs, when other C-level executives are actually quoting, using it when they're speaking with employees, when they're making decisions, saying, is that on mission for us? that's when it becomes a real reality. And then I think your follow-up point around to get the most out of employees, first of all, just to attract high performers, period, there needs to be values alignment. And I think it is absolutely okay to say, here is our values, and knowing that's not going to be for everyone, saying that these things matter hugely to me, because for the ones where it does matter, they're going to be differentially attracted to that kind of an organization, that kind of an opportunity. And then once they're on the job, there's a purpose, there's a why that keeps them motivated when the inevitable setbacks and challenges arise. So I think that you got to have, it's almost like a fractal where you got to have the big picture mission, and you got to be able to zoom into the details of an organization and see that same set of values embodied in the people and in their roles.
And as you say, it's so important to have that alignment, because in the end, I think it adds up to retention as well. Who's going to stay? If our values are not aligned, I don't think I need to be here. I need to be someplace else. But if you can align on values and they say, yeah, I want to be part of you, I want to be part of this company.
Yeah.
You have a probability, not possibility, but probability of them staying with you through the tough times too. When we talk about mission statements lately, I've been this funny approach to say, listen, do you ever see the movie 300 with Gerard Butler?
Of course.
Of course. They didn't have a mission statement, but had a slogan. And the slogan is, this is Sparta. Does anybody not know who we are? Does anybody want to argue about who we are? We send children into the wilderness to fight menacing beasts because you got it. This is Sparta. That's our value statement. Yep. But here's the other side of that I think that many organizations don't understand. I think many times people manufacture a mission statement for the outside world. This is who we are. This is what we do. Love us. See, this is who we represent to the world. But it's really for the people inside the organization.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I find it interesting. A lot of people say, hey, not everyone wants to make their job their mission and purpose in life. Some people are there to say, this is what I do during the day to pay the bills. And I think that's absolutely fine. I will say, while we're at it, why don't we put as much meaning into it as we can? And I think there's a missed opportunity to articulate. It may not be change the world. It may not be cure cancer. It may not be something with that level, but just have something that allows a person in those working hours of the day to be able to feel that there's something in it, that they're doing something that has purpose beyond. And the thing around this is Sparta, or saying you are part of something unique and great, the retention value, without question. I think when you see people, organizations who struggle to keep top people, you often find that there isn't something beyond the exit that they may have in an equity perspective. Somebody, once they've cashed out, they're done. What's there beyond that? What's there beyond the paycheck? What's there beyond that promotion, the title, the product launch that really keeps me aligned and keeps me going? I think having some sort of a tie to myself and who I am as a person embodied in my organization has incredible staying power. It becomes a little bit of saying my identity may be a bit strong, but at least it's something where I feel like part of my nature, my personality is mirrored, it's matched in the company that I work for. What a great way to keep talent on board and aligned.
And not to say, and of course, these are hidden many times, the costs associated with retention. When you have high turnover, you cost the company lots of money because you can't hang on to the people. They're leaving you. So it has a direct effect, the overhead on the cost, if you will,
for sure,
of the company.
I'll throw out an interesting counterpoint on this, and I would love your thoughts on this. I've also found, naturally speaking, if you look at the career arc of really high performing people, you'll often find they do leave and they do move on to new opportunities with some frequency. Sure, some stay at organizations for a very long time. I also find that organizations need to balance. Let's give people a meaningful reason to stay, as we've mentioned, but also I want to be so comfortable and so secure in myself as a leader that I'm willing to hire very ambitious people, knowing they may leave for new opportunities. And it's this notion of being a talent exporter. I would rather build, develop great talent and have an ecosystem of alums out there that are high performers and moving on to bigger and better things. So I found that there's a balance in it. If it's retention at all costs, sometimes we end up lowering our sights on the type of talent that we go after because we don't want those high performers, the ambitious people who might leave us. I'm curious for your thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think that ambitious people are going to do that.
Yeah.
And I had a guest named Stephen Copshaw on. He's a business owner,
Mhm.
and he said some great things. He said, the job of a leader is to put so much into his or her people that eventually they may leave you,
Mhm.
but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because as you say, I'm feeding the ecosystem around the business world, if you will. If they move on and go to something else and they've gotten something from me that they take with them and makes that organization that is not part of me better, so what? You know what? Everybody wins on that one.
What's an incredible side effect of that? And I've seen this with a number of clients, including Palantir that you had referenced in the intro. When you are known for exporting, like hiring, developing, and exporting great talent, word gets around, and that next generation of high performers are going to be attracted to a company where they can come in, be developed, learn a whole lot, and move on to bigger and better things. It's a big part of looking at my own background. The big three consulting firms, they know that people will leave. They do their best to retain, of course, but they know that people will leave. And it's not just good for them that those are potential clients in the future. It's also just because when they go to recruit the next round of employees, they have a compelling message to articulate saying, look at where people go from here. Look at what this does. Look at the launch pad that this creates for your career. So exporting talent can actually be an attractor for that next generation of talent.
Forget that new people coming in bring new ideas. They
Yeah.
bring new perspectives. And you can't just, in the world we live in today, in this VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, you need these kinds of influxes of new ideas, new thoughts, because things are moving so quickly that you may bring in someone who, as I like to say, you never know where a good idea is going to come from, who bring a fresh perspective. So I agree with you 100%. Everybody becomes a winner. You may
Yeah.
not think of yourself as a winner because someone left,
Yeah.
but in the end, you're right. People are going to say, you want to do business with the company? Go to them. They train, they develop me. And it just brings more to you in a manner of
Yeah.
speaking.
It makes me, I'm sorry, did you have another place
No,
you
go
want to
ahead. Go right ahead.
I was going to say, in speaking with so many great leaders, so in my assessment work, I learn the life stories of these executives that I've assessed. And it's interesting with the people who have built the most incredible teams. I find that they almost become like career coaches to their high performing team members, where yes, they want to retain them. Yes, they want to present growth opportunities to keep them around and keep them fired up. But they also have that sort of sensibility to know this person is ready for a next step in their career. And let's have it be an open dialogue where I can coach and counsel them and be a great reference for them, of course, and maybe make that inflection point come at a time when it's good for the business and good for them, right? Instead of this surprise, hey, I got this great opportunity, you can almost be like a coach in their corner, helping them explore opportunities and making sure that the transition is smooth, succession planning, making sure that individual is supporting the sourcing efforts to find their replacement or groom them from within.
I spent the first 11 years of my work life as a naval officer, and we always had new people coming in. You had to retrain, rework, send them on to the next assignment, develop them, send them on to the next assignment. And in a way, you invigorated ships in the Navy simply because you were constantly, as we called it, growing our own. You to
Mhm.
grow your own people, grow your own capabilities, see a young junior officer come aboard, train them, and then they go off and become a department head, eventually an executive officer, maybe captain of a ship. That was just, there was this churn, a self-imposed churn, if you will, keep people moving up the line. And if you didn't move up, if you didn't take on greater responsibility, the Navy would say, you probably don't belong here
Yeah.
because this is what we're about. So I witnessed it, been part, and it's all about growth. It's all about growth and taking on greater responsibility. Let me move to my next. We could beat that one. Good job, though. I appreciate it. Some episodes ago, I had a guest named Stephen Howard on
Mhm.
the podcast. Stephen has written 22 books on leadership and management. Okay? He told me a story about two executives hired by a company who, after a short period of time, left without another job in hand. Yeah. Their onboarding experience was not good.
Mhm.
The first few weeks in the organization was not good.
Mhm.
There was a tremendous mismatch. After they sorted out whether or not they truly wanted to be part of that organization. You speak about an irresistible candidate experience.
Mhm.
Can you describe what that looks like to you?
The key ingredient that I would say is the hallmark of a great candidate experience comes down to one word: rapport. What I mean by rapport is every meaningful interaction with that candidate, we approach them from a place of humanity, curiosity, interest. We call it being fascinated. So there's obviously the blocking and tackling. Let's make sure that we get back to them, that we communicate openly where they are in the process. Let's make sure that we show up on time to our interviews. So there's things are table stakes, of course, where I see companies. I think the biggest low hanging fruit is when you're in that interview, whether it's video, whether it's in person, phone, whatever, let's approach them from a place of deep interest, humanity, curiosity, to learn about them and learn about their story, as opposed to a checked out, checkbox, bored or tired, checking my phone, distracted mentality. We forget that these interactions, when a candidate is sharing of themselves and there's a job offer on the line, the stakes are enormously high. If you seem checked out or bored, or you're looking at your phone in your weekly stand-up meeting with your team, that's not a big deal. When a person's sharing their story and trying to get a job offer, the stakes are enormously high. It's a very vulnerable conversation. Winning candidate experience for me comes down to every interaction needs to be one in which we are communicating our deep interest in learning about this human being.
I absolutely agree. I've been around a couple of presentations lately on feedback, on giving good, honest feedback. And I
Mhm.
think your approach, and the problem I have, it's not that I think feedback's incredibly important. Don't get me wrong. I think many times the problem is people don't know how to give feedback. It's how do I build, just as you said, this relationship, this rapport, deep
Yeah.
interest in the person. That's the roadmap for me, in
Yeah.
just as what you said. I'm going to build a bridge between me and you. And the bridge is deep interest, caring about you.
Yeah.
And now I can walk across that bridge, so to speak, and deliver feedback, even if that feedback is not as positive as you might want to hear, at least at the moment.
Sure.
And the other part of that too is, and I would just go this way, and I'm going to ask for your reflection on this too.
Sure.
The other part of that is not to just say, here's the feedback, have a nice day. Okay. The other part of that is, what can I do to help you get
Yep.
better? What do you think of that?
I would say you've hit upon kind of three of the principles of giving great feedback in there. The doing it in a timely manner, not feeling like everything has to be a sandwich thing where you do the positive and then you sneak in the sort of, here's the thing maybe to do better, and then another positive, and then being solution oriented, talking about what can I do to support you in that. I think going back to the beginning of our conversation around what it takes to attract and retain high performers, feedback is a gift, and high performers know that. They crave feedback. Of course, they want the positive kind. They also want the constructive kind. They want to know where they can improve, and building discipline around it. I would add to the comment around the solution part of it and how can I help and support you in this. The other advice that I give to a lot of leaders about giving feedback to their teams is, don't presume the person's intent. Let's say that you observe something in a meeting and you ascribe that to their feelings about some issue or another, or their preparation or lack thereof, or something like that. Focus on the thing that you observed, as opposed to assuming what the person's intent was behind it, right? So if you can be as
Right.
objective and as timely as possible with your feedback, make it, this is what I observed, and do it as close to real time as you can. And then to your point, absolutely. What can I do to support you? Even presenting some ideas, and perhaps next time we could collaborate on this. any one of those things that keeps it forward looking as opposed to punitive about the past. So I fully agree with what you shared.
Yeah, and it even may be something as cross-training. You
Mhm.
might say, listen, you may need to spend 2 or 3 weeks in finance for you to get an understanding of what those people are going through right now. That something like that.
Mhm.
Would you be willing to do that? Would you like to take a 3-week vacation in a sense over to finance and just sit with them?
Yep,
And I think I can't tell you how many times I've had guests on talk about empathetic lead, being an empathetic leader. And for me, the best way to create empathy is to let someone walk in somebody else's shoes
for sure.
and say, hey, how did it feel? How did it feel being, or how did it feel being in operations?
Mhm.
Those kinds of things. And I think it also brings people closer together. Any thoughts on that?
Agree completely. I would also say when you're proposing the solution, whether it's go spend some time with the finance team, one thing I have found powerful in my own coaching work and certainly in the advice that I've given to leaders as they're coaching their teams is anytime you can pose it as a question, anytime you can invite their thinking, say, what are some ways that we can ensure the finance team is on board next time we present some of these changes and inviting their participation in it? They're
Exactly.
likely to come up with their own things, but I think just asking that question pushes into that territory of empathy where they're like, well, let's see. If I'm wanting to get them on board, I have to think like them. And now you're actually encouraging the empathy to come from them as opposed to just saying, go spend some time with them. Trust me. But both are great. And I do think anything that has a leader or a team member of yours understanding their stakeholders and putting themselves in their shoes, absolutely. Super
Yeah.
powerful way to get organizations aligned.
And as you said before, concentrate on the observed. For
Mhm.
example, I saw you say something, Dana. I mean, I'm not I don't understand what was that about. Help me understand
Mhm.
where you were coming from on that because I'm not criticizing. I'm just trying to understand. And I think when you express this, as your psychologists tell us all the time, always put it in terms of I.
Mhm.
I don't get it. I don't understand. I am a bit confused.
Yep.
And people are more than willing to come and say, oh, yeah, I was thinking of this. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't see
Yep.
that kind of, because you make that leap, you make a judgment,
Yep.
and that judgment is wrong because
It
you didn't
is.
know the background. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's approaching everything from curiosity. If I
Right.
observe something in another person that I presume means that they were angry with me, or I presume that means that they were discounting this initiative and were trying to get us off of it, that may or may not be the case. Before I come in with guns blazing on my hypothesis, what's the question that I can ask? And it may be as simple as help me understand when you said such and such, what was behind that? As opposed to clearly you think X, which to a
Right.
person, it immediately puts them on the defensive.
I absolutely agree. We're getting close to the end, but I have this
Mhm.
question I'd like
Sure.
to ask you. Jordan, you also speak of the idea of decoding CEO success.
Uh-huh.
That is unveiling patterns of the most successful leaders.
Uh-huh.
Now, we may have covered some, but we could hopefully peel the onion back a little bit here. What are 3 attributes or patterns of the most
Oh,
successful leaders in your opinion?
oh, great one. We've touched on one of them that is, it probably is the top of the list. A talent first mentality of my job is to surround myself with great talent, develop them, retain them, motivate them. That would be number one. Number two, I think is there's an element of strategy, and it doesn't need to be incredibly complex, genius IQ, but an ability to wrap your head around your domain and look objectively in a data driven manner and figure out what's the lay of the land and what are the actions we need to take. So I would call it something data driven strategy. The third one for sure is the willingness to make challenging trade offs. I think one of the most common failure modes of well intentioned leaders is I want to place 50 bets because I'm terrified that I'm going to miss an opportunity and I'm going to try to go down too many paths at once. I think a leader who is able to say, we're going to do X and we're not going to do Y, that's real strategy. And I think it's perhaps the most challenging of the three.
I've come up with I try to make some things humorous every once in a while. I don't know if they're successful, but I've come up with this idea for mission statements. I call it a roulette wheel mission statement. It's a roulette wheel mission statement, to your point. What happens many times is you go to the betting table. The betting table has all the numbers on it, right? Right next to the roulette wheel. And people want to come up and put money all over the betting table. I'll cover every bet.
You're guaranteed to lose a little bit. You will get the exact odds of the house if you bet on everything in roulette.
You're going to lose more money than you're going to make. It's as simple as that, because you're trying to cover every bet. Okay. Yeah. And that's what happens many times in mission statements. They try to cover every bet. Yeah. I'm working with a company, I'll tell you an interesting story, that builds fences in America. Okay. They have 7 locations. And I did what I call strategic thinking session with them, as opposed to a strategic planning. I differentiate the two by saying the difference between strategic planning and strategic thinking is, in strategic planning, you're looking for answers to questions. In strategic thinking, you're making sure you're asking yourself the right questions.
Yep.
Okay. So I said to them, send me we're working on it. They sent me a page, a full page. And I said, oh, I can't use this. So we went back and forth. I gave them, we got it down to about 12 words. When we finished the session, they all wanted to work on the mission statement, all 15 people that were there. And we had a vertical and horizontal cross of the organization, including the president, general manager.
Sure.
And they got it down to 7 words. I said, you're on the money.
That's good work. That's good work.
That's great work. This is Sparta. We're focused. Yep. We want to, now we know where we're going. Now people can get excited. Now we're going to walk and talk this every single day. And I think that's so important. Strategy, people don't get their arms around. They don't understand how absolutely important. The great Chinese general Sun Tzu once said, tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. Before defeat. And he's absolutely right. Jordan, You've been a fabulous guest, man. I appreciate your time here today on the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I feel like I found a kindred spirit. I want to thank you so very much for your time. I wish you and Talgo and all the people who work with there continued and the best success in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, great deal. Thank you.
Take care.